Are we going to a murder house? Why would we do that? So this is it.
10051 is right here.
Yeah, so it's up here. You know what I would do? I would cover this whole hill in poison ivy. And I'd be like, you might still get up here and kill me, but you're going to itch for days, bitch.
History, I'd like to follow me down the rabbit hole. History, I'd like to, frankly, I want to know.
Hello, and welcome to HILF, History I'd Like to Fuck, where history is a party and everybody's coming. I'm your host, Dawn Brody, and today we crawl in bed with the Manson family murders. A gruesome crime spree from the summer of 1969 that touched all of the media's erogenous zones. Hollywood, hippies, drugs, sex, and murder. And while the Manson family mesmerized and horrified the world, it is also, for me, as a resident of Los Angeles, local history. Right? So here's what I did. I prepared this HILF especially for my sister Lisa and her 15-year-old daughter Ellie, as they visited me from Boston for their spring break. I'm going to take you and them from the crime scene, through the trial, all the way to the where are they now? And of course, we got conspiracy theories for days. Right? I mean, MK Ultra, the CIA, the Beach Boys, Jack Ruby gets in bed with this one. It's wild. And you now join us at my kitchen table. But as you've heard, you'll eventually ride shotgun all the way to Benedict Canyon. Buckle up and let's get started. I'm so excited, you guys. I am honestly doing, you know how like when a dog pees because they're trying not to jump up on you?
Submersive?
That's kind
submissive pee or other kind of pee? Which one? I doubt submissive pee is what you're referring
I've never submitted to anything in my life.
That's not what we're referring to.
But it's like you can tell that they're like, I want to jump on you both, and I want to just hurl hot HILF history on you so hard, really loud, really fast. I want to just.
Oh my God, we're ready for it.
And
Take
instead, I am being reserved, and I am trying not to skip to the parts that have made me walk around this house.
We've been hanging out almost 24 hours, and you were ready to HILF all over us last night, but you held out.
I did. I was like,
proud of you.
It's happening. It's happening.
It's happening.
Oh no, it's peeking out. It's like when you get a little boner coming out of the pool. So, which brings us to Eliana, who's 15 and in LA for the second time, but also the first time as a teenager.
Yes.
And here's one of the reasons I told everybody that like I prepared this HILF especially for you, because I know you're kind of a sicko, like deep down you love this gross stuff, right? And also you're kind of the age of a lot of these girls.
Jeez.
Really?
Most of them are under 18.
What?
At least
That
when
young?
they first meet Charlie Manson. So like there is a very
So
like
young.
you'll have a certain access to some of this history. Like I have to harken back and I'm like, oh yeah, I'd totally be fodder from Charles Manson. Charles Manson would have gotten me fast.
Yeah.
You seem like you have a little bit more like, no, this doesn't seem right to me. Where I'd be like, your hair is amazing. Is that a bus? So long.
Would you like me to join you because of that great Nazi tattoo between your eyebrows?
No, he doesn't get that until later.
Oh, thank
Give
God.
me a little credit.
See, good. Okay.
Yeah.
I
See,
was
now
wondering,
we
I'm
know.
like, I don't think I could have followed him because of that, but I didn't know he didn't have that. That's tip number one.
Tip number one. The swastika came later.
I would have been turned on by that. That would have definitely not been on my thing.
And maybe if he had not been just sort of an adorable cutie with long hair,
Yeah.
he didn't display the signs of a psychopath until it was too late.
Yikes.
This introduction is very exciting because for listeners who are avid HILF fans, they vividly recall my sister Lisa from the
what?
Vibrator episode that we did with Ann and Mom 2 years ago from today.
Jeez.
That was
Time
so
flies.
fun.
That was.
I
learned a lot.
So did Mom. I think I think there was a lot of education for a lot of us.
That was great.
In that one. That was extraordinary. I have heard many, many times from listeners that reach out that was one of their favorites. And it's especially fun to hear listeners tell me like where they listen, like on road trips and stuff like that. And they'll be like, oh, I took your sisters along on a little road trip this afternoon, and it fills my heart. And I don't find it creepy.
It's Anne. She's comedy all on her own. Let's put it that way.
No, we miss her desperately.
Right?
There's a big Anne-shaped hole in this podcast.
That's true. Saint Anne.
She's not dead.
It's not
She's
Saint
just
Anne.
in
That's
Chicago. Yeah.
She didn't make it this trip,
She didn't
but
make
we
it,
will get her
and-
here.
And we love her so deeply. And Ellie, you're new.
Yes.
First time ever. Have you ever been on a podcast before?
No. I've recorded stuff for school, but no podcasts.
And you are a singer,
Yes.
and you write your own songs,
Yes.
and you're a visual artist.
Yes.
How else do you introduce yourself? What are your things?
I write. I'm a big writer. The ocean is like everything. They want to move me. My parents want to move me to Wisconsin, and I'm not doing it.
I've been there, and there are no oceans.
Oh, you've been there?
Yeah, no oceans there. Big lakes.
Never knew that.
The things you learn.
Yeah, I'm pretty fucking far from the ocean. I noticed that myself early
Yes.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have a good relationship with the subject of history
Yes.
at school? You like
Yes.
history?
It's my favorite subject, actually.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
No, chip off the old
The
block.
problem is, and your dad is super into history.
Yes.
Whoever he is. I mean, yeah, we think we have it narrowed down. What is your favorite era of history?
I actually love what we're doing right now. It's like Reconstruction, kind of going into the 20th century. And it's cool just seeing like America become America, like what we know of today. Like, obviously, I'm a big Hamilton fan, so I love like Revolutionary War era. But then jumping past like Civil War, which was very interesting, but just right up to where we get to see America really become America. It's so cool.
It is. It's that post-World War II kind of America defining cool through like movies and music and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And what do you know? What would you say is like your sphere of knowledge about Charles Manson, the Manson family? How much of this has filtered down to you?
I've heard the name, 100%. But
and he sounds
otherwise-
great. He sounds like a lot of fun.
Great fun. But otherwise, I know nothing.
Great.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, the listeners know I love it.
I know.
when
And
people
I
know
would
nothing.
say this is the first time I have heard you talk about the fact that you've researched any murders. Like, I didn't know you even had an interest in that topic. So
I think murder is one of those things that like,
you can't help it.
and we all have to just admit it.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
bizarrely
If somebody just goes to you,
fascinating
you know
and
that
creepy.
person you used to know 20 years ago, they got murdered. You wouldn't be like, yeah?
You're right.
Like,
It's like,
Now
wow,
you want to know more.
how?
Exactly.
It's very, and I think there's fear. It's like, what same reason you want to know about tarantulas and zombies, because chances are it's coming for you at some point. That reminds me, this does lock your doors, people. This story, yikes.
Just a peace of mind there. Yeah.
So you're saying, coming to you, Lisa, she's clean slate. What do you generally know or recall about the story of the Manson family and the Manson family?
So I can picture the 1960s and cool LA,
Yeah.
and this rocked the world. And I probably heard about it in the 80s when I was a teenager, probably close to Ellie's age, early teens, and not knowing about cults, not knowing. So that introduction of like a cult, like what is that? How do people get convinced of doing things that are so out of their own norm or character? And it was all traced back. I mean, so it's bits and pieces. I remember hearing about the murderers of famous people or, women being involved. But the cult piece is what really stuck. And I think there's more cult stories from that same time, mostly religious cults, like where people were drinking the Kool-Aid literally and things like that. The whole thing freaks me out. That whole concept that people would turn over all of their whatever it's called, your own peace of mind, your own thought, everything, and let someone else be in charge of you completely and wholly. It's bizarre to me.
Yeah, definitely. There's like the cult stuff. I was shocked. I thought that this sort of was the beginning because about like the 70s ones, like you talked about like the Halley's Comet and like Jim Jones and Jonestown and stuff like that.
Jonestown.
And those came in the 70s, which were after, and it sort of felt like Charles Manson kind of kicked off this like brainwashing thing. There were some cults in America during the like 1800s.
Okay.
Keep in mind that I don't matter, and my opinion shouldn't rattle anybody, but they include Scientology, and Mormons were considered religious cults by the U.S. government before they were sort of recognized as like protected religions. So like, it's a thin line. It's a thin line.
But that's all I know. Like I think the correlation of strokes. Very much broad strokes, and probably I think there was like, in high school, some picture book and like some crazy murders book that you could check out at the library, kind of like, oh my God, very documentary. It's one of those very HILF-y, very interesting things of history that is very difficult to teach in high school. Yeah.
Because it's scary, and it also just has a lot of drugs and sex and cults and things that are very difficult subjects for young people around this age to talk about. And yet it is a critical point in history. It happens all the time. And it is often targeted at exactly the people that we're sort of not telling this history to. And I get why people like us often hear about through pop culture long after we get out of school. But I think that the Manson family murders have a place in a history textbook for people in high school. I really do.
School's out for summer.
I think I first became aware of who Charles Manson was. I think Axl Rose jumps off a boat in a music video, and his t-shirt is just like Charles Manson's face. It's like a picture from him in court, and he's got like particularly wild eyes. Right. And it was just like,
you couldn't help but look it up.
Yeah, it was like the thing, and I was like, whoa. And I think Mom, who's very intelligent and knows a lot of this stuff, and was a teenager who had just gotten out of high school during this period in history, was like, oh, his name is Charlie Manson. He started a cult with a bunch of girls who killed people, including a famous actress. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
It's too bad we don't have the internet yet, because I would take that one and run with it. So it took about 25 years, but here we are. So what I like to do, this history is so exciting. What I'd like to do is start by telling you about my sources, where I got the information for the history that we're going to go over. And there's so many. Every once in a while, you get to a historical moment and story where there's one take, or there's some newspaper article, or it's a mystery. And then every now and again, you get these fucking things that happened in the 20th century. And there's
enormous amounts. Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And we are not the first three to be like, tell me everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the first source is a book called Helter Skelter, The True Story of the Manson Murders. It was written in 1970 by a guy named Vincent Bugliosi, who was the lead prosecutor in the court case. And it came out, 1970 is right after the trial. So people had been fascinated looking at the headlines.
Okay.
Yeah. And this book is Tolkien size.
Maybe that's what I read.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it is court, everything, background, and it is considered the definitive story. I mean, written by the guy who was right there, right at the time, and everybody goes there, right? And it, among other things, it tells you about the story is the motive.
Okay.
Right? Why did Charles Manson and his family murder these people? And it's helter skelter. The basic idea is that Charles Manson himself was nuts, crazy, and his goal was to start a race war and create chaos in America. And so let's start the war. This is helter skelter. He hated the normies, and it was sort of like the rise of the hippies, which even at the time, it sounds so absurd and scary because it's so like in the woods. But like the second source that I have is called Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. It came out in 2020. And one of the first things that the author of this book does, his name is Tom O'Neill, is he reads Helter Skelter for the first time. And his whole assignment when he starts is he works for a movie magazine called Premiere. It's 1999, the 30th anniversary of the Manson murders. And they're like, we'd like you to do a little retrospective. And he's like, great. And flash forward, this book comes out in 2020. Girl spent over 21 years going down rabbit holes and being like, holy shit. He obviously blows his deadline. He ends up writing a book instead of a magazine article. He writes in the first person, like his own relationship with the people. And It is really, really good. Here's the thing, though. You got to know the history. You've got to know Helter Skelter before you can go into the conspiracy theories. You know what I mean? You've got to get even if you're going to burn the house down, you have to build the house and see how tall it is. You know what I mean? Because there are also countless videos, interviews with Charles Manson, interviews with all these lawyers, interviews with the victims' families, interviews with the perpetrators in prison, after prison, 20 years later, 30 years later. You can watch them age. You know what I mean? You just keep clicking these videos, as your friend so does. and you're watching 12, 15-minute interview, and you watch their hair get gray and their perspectives change, and it's
Does he ask like the
wild.
same questions each time? Like, is their story changing?
No.
Okay.
Sometimes there's little things, sometimes there's big things, but no, for the most part, they're talking about their own lives and like revelations and how they're doing and what they're feeling and what's changed in them or what's not changed in them, what they remember, you know? It's fascinating. So all of the links to those books and the YouTube videos that I watched will all be linked in the show notes to this episode if you want to spend the next 20 years of your life
Learning more.
Good news.
Oh, yeah.
As I like to do, I start my HILF-ing with a story. Come with me, please, to August 8th, 1969. It's late. It's almost midnight. We are at 10050 CeeLo Drive in Benedict Canyon, a fucking gorgeous house. And I'm going to start also with the perspective of one of the most high-profile victims, which is Sharon Tate. She's a 26-year-old, absolutely gorgeous actress at the top of her game at the time she is murdered. And the reason I want to start with her is because after she dies, in our history today, we just aren't going to talk about her much more. You know what I mean? And we're going to talk a lot more about Charles Manson and his family. But like, Sharon Tate, fuck. Okay, so we're going to start with her.
Good.
And on this evening, Sharon Tate is sitting in her bed. She is 8.5 months pregnant. You and I have been 8.5 months pregnant. You glow and it fucking sucks. Nothing is good about being 8.5 months. Your feet hurt. Nothing is right. She's still an angel. She's gorgeous, but like, ugh, right? At the end of her bed is sitting one of her dear friends and former lover. What? His name is Jay Sebring. He's about 35. He is a professional hairdresser, and he's like a hairdresser to the stars. Like, no one can afford him. He's a big deal.
Wow.
There's a bedroom down, a couple of doors down. There's a gal named Abigail Folger, who's 25. She's the heiress to the Folger fortune.
The Folgers.
The Folger coffee
That
fortune.
Folger.
And she's kind of an activist. She's cool. She's 25. She's jamming. Her boyfriend, Wojciech Frykowski, he is Polish, hot. He's 35 and he's asleep, AKA passed out on the couch in the living room. Sharon Tate's husband is the very famous director Roman Polanski, and he's in fucking Europe working on a movie. And probably, this is my projection, Sharon and Jay are probably talking about that. I suspect that they're kind of like, this fucking sucks. She wants him to come home. She's been hoping he comes home. She's due in 2 weeks.
Right.
And he's working and he won't come home. And also he kind of like said he was going to give all these people like she doesn't know Abigail that well. She doesn't know this like Frykowski guy that well.
And they're in their
but
home.
they're in their house and he wants them there to keep her company. And it, you know what I mean? So I have a feeling they're kind of like, fuck that guy.
It's pissing me off.
Pissing me off. And one of the things that makes Roman Polanski so famous is he has directed Rosemary's Baby, which is the movie of 1968. I don't know if you've ever seen it. You should. It's great. It's about the devil.
It is about the devil.
Amazing. It's about the devil impregnating a lady. So there's a lot going on. And Sharon Tate she was in The Valley of the Dolls, which was a huge movie in 1967. And she is a rising star. She's 26. Everything's going right. At about midnight, outside this house, a car pulls up. Inside the car, driving the car, is Linda Kasabian, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Krenwinkel. Manson told Tex Watson to go to that address and kill everybody inside. He told the girls to get in the car and do whatever Tex tells them to do. They were not unaware that they were going to be killing people. They had knives. They were prepared to do whatever. There is, over the course of the history, I'll get there, there's some fluctuation the girls say about what Charlie did exactly, but that's our helter-skelter, right? So first thing, they're sitting in the car, and Tex looks up at the house, and he climbs a pole and cuts the phone line. Then they drive the car to the bottom of the hill, and they tell Linda Kasabian, wait here. They take their knives. They have 3 knives and 1 gun, and they walk onto the property. And as they're walking on, they see 2 headlights, a car coming out. And this guy, it's Stephen Parent. He's 18. He's there selling a clock radio to the caretaker. Okay.
Right, random.
Poor guy,
At midnight.
right? And he sees these guys walking up the driveway, and they slash him. So he has 1 huge slash mark on his arm. And then Tex shoots him in the chest 4 times. Bang, 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 bang.
Wow. Dead.
By all accounts, no one heard it. The caretaker and the people inside didn't hear it. It's LA. Who knows?
True.
They go to the house. The doors are locked. Good girl. He cuts a screen, climbs in, opens the front door for the girls. So now in the house, you got Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Krenwinkel. They kick the guy on the couch, Frykowski. They kick him awake. And he's like, what the fuck? And Tex sends the 2 women down the hallway to bring everybody down into the living room. Abigail Folger is so used to like hippies and weirdos coming into the house that she like waves at them. You know, hi guys.
And who are you?
Is there everybody ready? They take her, they take Sharon, they take Jay Sebring into the living room with Frykowski, and they start to tie Frykowski's neck with a nylon cord, throw it over a beam, and tie the other end to Sharon Tate's neck. At this point, Jay Sebring says, fuck you, to some extent. She's pregnant, be careful with her. And they just shoot him.
Damn.
Wow.
Right.
So that's a sign things aren't going well for the rest of them.
Doesn't look great. Which precisely goes in the mind of Frykowski, and Folger fucking run. Susan Atkins had him like tied up with a towel. They were sort of improvising tying them up. And once you see the dude shot, you get superhuman strength. They take off.
Right.
Susan Atkins grabs Frykowski, starts cutting. Tex jumps in, kills Frykowski, stabs him 51 times. Jeez. Patricia Krenwinkel chases Abigail Folger out the front door, runs her down, and stabs her about 50 times. I think they said there were 101 total stab wounds throughout the night. And says in her own account that Abigail Folger at one point says, I'm already dead. Because she's just stabbing. And she says, I'm already dead.
Damn.
The only person left alive at this point is Sharon Tate. And she's, again, 8.5 months pregnant, 2 weeks from her due date. She pleads with them for her life. She pleads for her baby's life. She says, you could take me hostage. And Susan Atkins says, bitch, you're going to die. And guts her.
Oh, God.
They also apparently strung her up, pulled that rope up. And that was how she was found. Then Susan Atkins dips a towel in Sharon Tate's blood and writes pig on the front door in her blood.
I remember that in a picture.
Yeah, that's kind of, that locks in the mind. That their bodies are discovered by Winifred Chapman, the housekeeper, the next morning. And that's where we're going to take a very short break. Be right back. Now, if you're an avid HILF listener, then you know that this is usually when I thank my patrons and I try to entice you to join their noble ranks. And I'm still going to do that, girl, but not yet. Okay, because first, here is a little bit more of the car audio as I drove Lisa and Ellie to the Tate house at 150 CeeLo Drive. Like, it happened to be halfway between my place and the airport. And so it really was on a whim. We drove by, and here is a couple minutes of it.
Okay, so we're only 16 minutes from the house right now, but what you can start thinking about is that this is how the car with Linda Kasabian driving, and Tex like, this is how they got there.
Yeah.
But like, it's 1969. They got no Google Maps.
How do you find
How the
these
heck do a bunch of
places?
LSD cokeheads even find an address? Like,
Great question.
there's kind of a funny scene of like Linda Kasabian, and like they have their knives and they're all like Manson family scary, but they're also like 17, 15. I think we're going north. No, we passed it.
We passed
You know?
the house. Turn around.
I love it. It says you have arrived at 150 CeeLo Drive. All right.
But then he sold the house after this murder happened, and they burned the house down or got rid of it.
9 Inch Nails, Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails moved in and recorded, and so did Marilyn Manson, of all people, recorded, and he built a sound studio that he called Pig Studios.
Gross.
So there was some less than like cool treatment, but actually Trent Reznor has said since that like he's like, I was like a young rock star and I was thinking about Charles Manson exclusively as like a cultural icon, and you know, and he was like, the family, I've talked to the family and like I can't, I'm so sorry, you know what I mean? But yes, then eventually they demolished it, they built a new house, we are pulling up to it now.
Oh, it was such a blast to have such close proximity to the location of my HILF. Man, I don't always get to do that. And if you want to hear more of our conversation from Sharon Tate's driveway, well, you can join my patrons and hear it all. The latest to enjoy these perks and more include Tanya M., Lois V., and Arthur M.V. Oh, their support helps afford me the time and resources it takes to do the deep dives and keep the history coming again and again. Now, listen, it's back to 1969. It is the morning of August 9th, in fact, and the world has just woken up to the horrific headlines of the terrible scene from Benedict Canyon. Little do they know, the bloodshed is not yet over.
Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow.
That night, at 3301 Waverly Place in Los Feliz, which is a separate part of Los Angeles, pretty far away, actually, like noticeably different neighborhoods.
Yeah.
A car pulls up. And it's Charles Manson, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, so the same people who had done the murders the night before. They also have Leslie Van Houten, a guy named Clem Grogan, and Linda Kasabian is driving again. This time they pull up to the house and they don't know why. They don't know what is the connection to this house. They'd partied in this house before, you know, but otherwise they have no connection to it. Charlie goes in first, and inside is Lino LaBianca and his wife, Rosemary. He's like a grocery chain executive. Charlie like takes them by surprise, ties them up, and tells them this is just a robbery. Then Charlie leaves the house, goes to the car, tells Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten to go inside and kill the two people who are tied up. He says, hitchhike back. And the rest of them drive off. Krenwinkel, Van Houten, and Tex Watson go into the house. Tex immediately starts to attack Lino. The girls take Rosemary to a back bedroom. And tie her up with a lamp. She hears her husband being murdered and starts to go wild, as one would, screaming and throwing the lamp around and attacking the girls. And they're starting to lose control. They start to yell. Tex Watson comes in, kills Rosemary LaBianca on her bed, and then gives the knife to Leslie Van Houten and says, Charlie wants everyone to get their hands dirty. And Leslie Van Houten stabs her in her lower back 16 times.
Oh my God.
Patricia Krenwinkel goes out Lino LaBianca's dead, she stabs him. She sticks a fork out of him and leaves it in him and another one in his neck because Charlie told her to do something witchy, to leave something witchy. That was her interpretation. She then takes the blood and she writes Helter Skelter on the refrigerator. She spells it wrong.
Interesting.
It's not funny, but it's sort of like, it's your whole point. Just know how to spell. I'm just saying, just know how to spell Helter Skelter. She writes Helter Skelter. Rise in blood above a door and pigs again. Okay. They aren't discovered until 10:30 the next night, almost 24 hours later. Rosemary LaBianca's son comes home and yeah. The police, of course, the first night when fucking Sharon Tate is murdered in her pregnant, hung up Beverly Hills, famous, hard to think of anyone. She's the upper echelon of famous. This is everywhere. Every newspaper, every radio, every television.
Right.
Oh my God. The cops say that these two crimes are not related.
Oh.
Well, first impression is not, I would just think they're trying not to like shake everything up even more. But like the fact that someone's writing blood messages, there's obviously a connection.
That's what they said. And people were like, same. They were like, okay, I understand we don't want to jump to conclusions here, but
There's
they
something
seem really
weird.
related.
It's like the one situation where you can.
Yeah. You're like,
You have to assume the worst.
they wrote pig on the door. And the
Right.
police explanation was it's a copycat.
Right,
There's this there's a murder that just took place of huge famous people up in the hills, and some unhinged person just decided to do something similar, which is not, but it seems like a crazy thing to rule out. But they were like totally different. They were totally different places. They just ruled it out from the beginning. Keep in mind, let's just take a moment to get into the minds of the American people
Right.
who are receiving this news. You guys, this is part of what like blew my hair back. This is August of 1969. The moon landing happened 2 weeks ago. Wow. July 20th, 1969. And that alone shook
It's a big day.
consciousness. What is possible? You mean we can leave our atmosphere, we can land on, I mean, holy fuck. That thing shook everybody.
Right.
From faith to science to, I mean, what the fuck? It was 2 weeks ago. We have no idea what we're doing.
Right.
1963 is when JFK was assassinated. That was recent. That's closer to them than COVID is. You know what I mean? It's COVID to us. It's not that distant history. Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. were assassinated last year. And when Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. were assassinated in 1968, it most historians will agree was what shook the foundation of the youth. Now are boomers, but at the time they are young, impressionable. You know, their parents suffered through the Depression and World Wars, and they've nothing. And now we have people on the moon.
Right. A lot. That's a big year. A big
Huge
summer.
year. And everything that the youth were trying to do.
Right. The war.
The Vietnam War is in full swing. Civil rights are in full swing. The Black Panthers are rising. And then there's this anti-war movement. It is regardless of your proximity to California or whatever, there's just a lot of foundational things that are shaking. Mm-hmm. So in the midst of all this is just like wild killers on the loose, writing these things in blood. And it's like incredibly gruesome. Okay. So knowing nothing, not believing these two things are happening, the newspapers at first are covered in this caretaker guy who was getting his clock radio because he's survived. He comes out, they arrest him and he's shirtless. Hot, by the way. Very nice looking young man. He's 19. He's great looking.
Does anyone question why someone's selling a clock at midnight?
It's the 60s, baby.
That is a little, like, I'd be like, weird. Door-to-door salesman at midnight.
Yeah, like
okay.
Cocaine clock radio? I understand that.
Okay.
Because
but
like,
he
I feel
survived.
like this guy doesn't need to wake up
Right.
at any particular
I
time.
know.
But then again,
You
who
know.
knows? He was like, people on the moon, huh? Have I got
I got something you should know.
I have something
about.
that will get you up at exactly the time you want to, like, babe. I got you, babe. No, we
Clock
don't, sadly.
radios.
I wish I could go down
There's
the
no
rabbit
one
hole of the
questioning.
clock radio for you, Lisa.
Why? Why at midnight
Why?
are you selling whatever?
Here's
Okay,
the
moving
question
on.
is, why
But
did
he
I
survived.
repeat it? Most of the accounts don't bother telling you he was there to sell the clock radio, but that's the kind of history
That
nuggets
is
you're going to
good.
get You're on this record. Why was he there?
I've learned so
He was
much
like-
already.
Because I was like, who was he fucking? And they were like, no, he said he was just there to,
Right.
not that he said he was dead, but the caretaker was like, and he has no connection to anyone else. He's just this nice kid. He even looks like a
Wow.
square. You look at the pictures of all the victims and you're like, hot, interesting, long hair, artist type. And then there's Stephen Parent with just like his 50s glasses and his clean cut hair. And and he was like, wrong place, man.
Wrong place, wrong time.
But this caretaker gets arrested first. And like, you obviously killed everybody here. And he's like, I just woke up. Maybe you didn't hear it. I don't have a clock radio. I sleep in. He said, he was like, and in later years, he said, listen, I literally didn't hear anything that shook me. Did I hear someone screaming? Yeah. These people have pool parties.
I was just going to say.
All the time. And
I
people
bet they
run
had-
out screaming. They're all doing drugs.
And
He was
coming
like,
and goings in the middle of the night seems common.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't. He's like, I didn't hear anything that sounded remotely unusual that got me out of bed. And they gave him a lie detector test and all this stuff and let him go. They raid this place. It's called the Spawn Ranch, which is Spahn. It is a real movie ranch. It was an old Western movie set that was abandoned. Manson and the family had been living out there for almost a year. And it's very interesting to me and very surreal. And the fantastic Quentin Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, nails it.
Okay.
Because it's like, if you've ever been on a movie set, like an old Western set, they look amazing from the street, but they're all facades. You know what I mean? When you walk through a door, it's probably just open air back there, or like a platform, or maybe they built a wall, but it was designed to just fool the camera. It's not a structural wall, but there are horses, actually working horses, and there's like a corral. And there's no running water. Everybody stinks. It's like really gross, but it's huge and beautiful. And this is where they've been living. They have on site stolen vehicles. They got guns, teenage runaways, drugs. They like get there like, Jesus, man, there's so much criminality happening out here. And they arrest everyone and then they're released. Actually, like 3 days later, it was a wrong date on the warrant. Oh, God. And Charlie is like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. So they leave the Spawn Ranch.
Wait, can I back up for a second? How many months went by that no one was arrested for
let me
these
give you this important thing.
October.
So the first arrest happens August 16th. These murders happened August 9th.
Yeah.
August 16th, they raid the ranch, arrest everybody
Oh.
because they have stolen cars and drugs and
But they
teenage
don't
runaways.
connect
They have
them.
no connection, and it's a misdated warrant, and everyone gets released. And Charlie's like, whew.
That's August 16th.
And August 16th. Then October, he has moved the whole family out to a more remote ranch in the Badland, in the desert, in Death Valley. So he takes everybody out to Death Valley, and they're looking for a bottomless pit from which the locusts will come. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is where the police then come find them there, arrest them there. And this is where you're like, when you said, maybe the cops were it's really hard to give the cops a lot of credit, okay? Because then they arrest him there and they see Susan Atkins and they believe that she is a participant in another crime. They arrest her. She's sitting in her cell and starts telling everybody about how she killed Sharon Tate. And so her cellmates are like, we're gonna tell on you and get a huge reward. And so they do. And that is how they finally arrest Charles Manson, Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, Linda Kasabian, and Susan Atkins. Okay, so these are the 5 who get arrested. And holy fuck, we solved the case, right? And the whole world's like, who did it? Who killed Sharon Tate and cut the baby out of her? And like these horrible rotten, and it's hippies?
Right.
It's hippies? Like,
We thought that was peace, love, and all of that.
And we also know hippies are weird, but they're not like scary. And there's been an unnerving, parents are seeing their kids like dissolve into like drugs and they're starting to do shit we've never done. But like it seemed more self-fulfilling than like outwardly aggressive. And people are like, oh my God. Okay.
That's what I remember, maybe even mom, but like the idea that this happened because they were on drugs. Like that connection of like hippies are dangerous because you can go crazy smoking weed.
Yeah.
There was a weird
reefer
sort of
madness and like watch
so
out.
this was like proof that you shouldn't smoke weed was some of what I remember.
Totally. And why college is scary, right? If you go to college, you're going to meet these people and they're going to eat your brain. and they're going to turn you into a bloodthirsty animal. Yeah.
There was some weird connection to, like you said, hippies weren't scary until this.
Yeah.
But that idea that like, oh, but drugs will make you crazy was also the connection that I remember people making of like, you don't know, what was it? Right.
Yeah. And the Summer of Love is 1967. And that was like when everyone went to San Francisco and it was this really cool, groovy time.
Right.
And Woodstock happens August 15th and 16th. So it's pretty much 3 days
69?
later. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the Manson family murders happened August 8th and 9th, and Woodstock happens August 15th and 16th. But we didn't know. No one was arrested yet. You know what I mean? We didn't know the hippies were into it. So like Woodstock is like this perfect example of like what hippie unity typical, and like everybody just figured it out and it was totally peace and love and groovy.
Right.
And so it was a real shock to the system to 3 months later see these same figures scaring the shit out of us. Are you ready to hear about the trial?
Yes. But wait, one more quick trace. So it was, the murders happened the 8th, 9th. The 16th, there was an arrest, but they had a bad warrant date.
And so they were not looking for the murderers of Sharon Tate. It was totally separate.
Like auto theft. Okay. But then in October, they actually were like, oh, and now we've made this. So it was the second arrest in October that they actually kept them in jail.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And they didn't pursue them in October because they thought they were the killers either. They just realized Susan Atkins was connected to another crime. And while she was in jail, she just started talking about it. And they were like, oh, it looks like we got the people. Yeah. So this is not like crack detective work.
You're like, this was dropped in your lap.
This was dropped in your lap twice, technically. And
technically speaking.
Yeah, you blew it. Crazy. And also when you talk about like how much publicity was going on. So think about the timeline. August, the murders happen. October, they arrest them and realize who they are. And already they're like, these guys are nuts. In December of 1969, Charles Manson is on the cover of Life magazine.
Oh my God. Wow.
It's his face and it's like, buckle up, America. Because this is a guy and cults and drugs and LSD and these hippies and it's crazy. Okay. But the trial hasn't happened yet.
Oh my God.
Right. So that's a problem.
That is a problem.
You're not supposed to do this.
You're not supposed
because it taints the jury.
Innocent till proven guilty, all that shit.
Correct. But they were also, and I'm sure if you read the article, they were like alleged in the right place in the sentence. But like Buddy was on the cover of Life.
Wow.
So the trial starts in June. Okay. So almost a full year later, 1970. Our guy Tex Watson, if you are a fan of the Manson murders and you can picture the girls walking down the hallway, because it was like all the stuff was like them walking into court, and Charlie, he has long hair, a scraggly beard. He's a young guy. He's in his mid 30s and he does a series of crazy faces. And it's as he's walking. Exactly. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But you also know what he's there for.
Yeah.
And the cameras, but it's also kind of a weird paparazzi thing. It's, you know what I mean? Like it does sort of feel like, hey, shoulder, hip, purse. Like it's a very distorted thing, right? Unnerving. And the girls would walk into court every day, holding hands, singing Charlie's songs, chanting, giggling, wearing sweet little dresses. Very scary. Like you talk about your doll, like why dolls are creepy is because they're adorable. You don't think something sweet and adorable and female
could do that.
Cut a baby out of a you know what I mean? Because people still can't get out of their minds what crimes were. It wasn't like they hit him with their car. They carved him up. So every cute, adorable thing that they do is just makes it like
that much creepier.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable.
And everyone's looking at their kids like, you look like these fucking weirdos. You look like these fucking weirdos. These fucking weirdos
they
are
look
everywhere.
Normal, not Charles Manson. I would say he tries to look scary, but they looked normal in every image I remember seeing. Like normal.
Now it does get weird. They shave their heads at one point, they start doing what Charlie does. But their first appearances were almost worse because they were so sweet. Little dresses, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And cute. So the first day of testimony is June 24th. Charlie very briefly represents himself.
Wow.
Which I find is remarkably benevolent of our justice system to be like, all right, let's hear him out. You know what I mean? It didn't last long.
We're like, we're going to turn off his mic as soon as
they were
possible.
finally like, I don't know, actually. I'm not sure that we can actually let him do that. He can have representation, but he starts by representing himself. When they tell him, no, you can't do it anymore, he shows up testimony. He shows up with an X carved into his own forehead. And he says, I've been X'd out. I'm doing this because I'm not a person. I'm a non-person. I've been cut off. And the next day in court, the 3 girls show up with their X's also carved into their forehead. Keep in mind that this family is huge. The number of people living out on that Spawn Ranch is comes and goes, but it's upward of like 40, 50 people. Wow. And a lot of the family is in the court, and then they can't be in the court because they're screaming, they're yelling out, they're chanting, they're singing. So they move the family out to the hallway. Equally crazy, disrupting court, getting in people's way. So then they move them out to the sidewalk, which means the whole wide world can see them from all sorts of angles. So again, if you want to go to YouTube and you want to see the family, and they've got their bloody X's carved on their forehead, and they're sitting on the sidewalk, and you did this, and your judgment, and you don't judge me, and Charlie, 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 Charlie. I mean, wonderfully wild stuff. The cameras were like, this is great. The court generally says, here's the deal. This whole helter-skelter motive, right? We're going to make this digestible for you, America. Here's what happened. Charlie's crazy, clearly. His helter-skelter motive, which they wrote in blood on the door. He is, never forget, and Charlie Manson is very like intriguing and charismatic and magnetic, but he is a racist. The beating heart of Charles Manson is racism. He wants a race war, and this is his whole theory, that the blacks of America will rise up in violent rebellion and murder all whites. And it was among the reasons he thought white people who were friends with blacks or who married blacks were like the worst, because they're fraternizing with the enemy and they're too stupid to know that they'll be the first ones lined up against the wall when the revolution comes. His plan was to go out into this hole in the desert, where they would hide during the revolution. The blacks would murder all the whites on earth. And then when the war was over, they would come out and be the only whites left, clearly still superior in his opinion to black people. And then they would take over the world. So that's not crazy. Charlie's big plan. Okay. And that is why the whole blood in writing pig and stuff and rise, these are slogans of the Black Panthers. So he also was trying to frame everything he did with the murders was to frame the Black Panthers. He wanted everyone to think this is the race war starting. They've started to rise up.
Wow.
And so some of those specific phrases were designed to throw people off. Our gal, Linda Kasabian, who didn't kill anybody but only drove the car, she turned state witness fucking fast. She gets full immunity. So she's a lot of where all of this comes from.
The details, the facts.
Totally. So she's gone. So after her testimony, she disappears. That's why we only see 3 girls walking down the hallway.
When she says disappears, it's what's the word for it? Witness
protection.
Yes. Yeah. So she's alive possibly somewhere?
She was on Larry King in 2009 in a wig and in shadows. She does interviews. She shows up. Look it up. A wild girl.
Okay, so she's alive.
Different identity.
She sat down with a weird wig and a little voice alteration in the shadow with sunglasses and her lawyer.
Told her story.
And occasionally does interviews and documentaries in that way. And we don't know where she is. The LA Times has as their headline, Manson guilty, Nixon declares. Richard fucking Nixon, the president, got on the news and said, this guy Charles Manson is bad news and he's clearly killed these people. And they put it on the front page. And so the defense lawyers were like, come on, man. The president can't say someone's guilty in the middle of a trial. And it was sort of dismissed. October 5th, Manson jumps the judge.
Oh.
His name is He jumps, tries to get him. And the girls stand up and start chanting in Latin.
Oh, God.
While he's doing it. The judge comes back to court, but apparently he carries a gun from that point on. November 16th, it rests. Okay, and keep in mind, in between all this, the family's outside doing crazy shit.
Right.
It's like constant, okay? Mm-hmm. So November 16th, the prosecution rests. The next day, the defense rests. The defense is like, Yeah, and they called no witnesses. Charlie never went to the stand. The girls never went to the stand. Nobody defends him. Nobody claims mental pushed him into it or whatever.
Insanity.
And the girls, when they say the defense rest, the girls stand up and start screaming. Because they wanted to take the stand, because they wanted to tell the world Charlie had nothing to do with it, that Charlie didn't kill anybody, and they were trying to absolve Charlie. So they all wanted to take the stand because they wanted to save their Messiah, right?
Right.
And the lawyers were like, we absolutely won't, like...
There's no need for that.
And the quote was, I'm not going to let my client jump out a window. Because it would be self-incrimination.
Right.
And whether or not that was right. Okay, this lawyer, his name is Ronald Hughes. The court's like, okay, this is nuts. And like trial and Charlie jumped the judge and all this shit. We're going to take a 10-day recess and then come back for sentencing.
Okay.
On that 10-day recess, you guys, Ronald Hughes goes fucking camping with his friends and disappears.
Wow.
He disappears.
This
He
is
never
1970, 1971, somewhere in there.
This is 1970, 1970. 71 now, yeah. So he just disappears on a camping trip, never comes back. And they go, well, that's weird. Let's move on to sentencing.
Wait, really?
Yes.
That's it.
Let's move on to, let's get it.
I suppose you don't need your lawyer there anymore for sentencing, but still.
Crazy. Well, I mean, let's move on to the judgment. Like, let's get this going. So January 25th, 1971, the jury finds them all guilty on all 27 counts, right? Because it's the murder, it's a deadly weapon, it's trespassing, it's all the violating parole, all the various things that they were doing. In the sentencing, when the sentencing phase shows up, Charlie has shaved his head. He shows up totally bald. And all three girls show up the next day. They've shaved their heads too. And it's wild, just because it's not just that they had hair. Their hair was everything. Their hair is this long, you know what I mean, flowing, beautiful thing. March 29th, the sentence, death for all of you. Now, you may have noticed Tex Watson is not in this yet.
I was wondering.
Tex, when they all got arrested, fucked off back to Texas. And Texas had a hard time California had a hard time getting him back from Texas. They didn't want to extradite him. And then when he did get back to California, he stopped eating, lost 55 pounds, wouldn't talk, wouldn't walk. So they had to like prove he was capable to stand trial, get him back. So his trial happens on a separate timeline.
Okay.
He, however, is also found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death.
Jeez.
In 1972, the death penalty is abolished in California, and their sentences are all commuted to life in prison. Also 1972, fun fact, Watergate starts. So like, poor America.
No kidding. Tumultuous times.
Tumultuous times. Like anyone who's like, oh, it's such a simple, it was so beautiful. It was like, I don't know what span of weeks you're talking about.
Summer of 69 is a good song. Let's give us that.
Summer of 69.
We still have the song. But
that song made it feel like it was like kind of great.
Well, it was probably until August 8th. It was a really good year.
You're like, we got to the moon and these bops won't stop. The Beatles.
Right.
This is great. Do you have any questions? Anything about the murder or the trial that you're curious about or you'd like more information?
So the text question was good. I'm glad you covered that because I was wondering where he went because he was clearly part of it. I don't know. Of the other 40, no one else was found guilty. Like, there's this weird thing where you're like, you all came home to the family bloodied. And if Sharon Tate's tweeting like the canary in the coal mine,
right?
You all heard this story. What the hell? Like, why didn't anyone else at all in that whole... I guess it's hard to arrest 40 people, but for a crime like this?
Yeah, I agree. It is kind of weird. And they also, like, they're still sitting on Spawn Ranch with, like, a bunch of stolen cars.
And they're like, we love Charlie Manson, and we've been in his face. Like, they're kind of admitting to accomplice. I don't know.
Yeah,
do you find that strange?
There are...
Or, like, encouragement.
It does seem...
Yeah.
And they also are, like, fucking wild. I mean, like... You can see footage of them, like, on the day that they all shave their heads, the family out on the sidewalk, of course, they've all shaved their heads, and they start just crawling down the sidewalk, like, on their hands and knees, and these, like, weird bald heads. And you see these, like, ladies coming out of the shopping who are like, oh, my God.
What is this now?
And you're like, it's the 60s. Man, I don't know, man.
Right.
It's all falling apart. And one of the subtexts and the real, like, underlined point in Helter Skelter is the Manson murders are the end of the 60s. That it ended this free love, peace, whatever, experimental, the youth. And it just made it all this scary darkness that does lead into like Patty Hearst and Jim Jones. And it's just sort of this descent. And so do you have any questions, Eliana?
No.
Okay. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to find out what happened to all these cunts after they go to jail and what Helter Skelter got wrong.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay. Thanks again to Lisa and Ellie for choosing sunny LA for their spring break destination and to be willing to wade through blood while they were here. Oh, girl, and we ain't done yet. In part 2, we follow what happens to the Manson family after the murders, okay? Who stays loyal to Charlie the longest? Who writes books? Who gets conjugal visits and has 4 kids? What? And what the hot hell do the Beach Boys have to do with any of this, right? You probably thought Manson was a Beatles fan. Girl, this is so nuts. And you don't want to miss it, okay? And if you live, by the way, in LA, guess what? You had a chance to see me HILF the Manson family live. Yeah, the first Thursday of every month, I take my full frontal history to Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank, California for a night of history, comedy, and games with my favorite people. Join us. It's such a blast, and you can find tickets in the show notes. Until next time, our theme song was composed and performed by Kat Perkins. She's so good. Artwork for HILF is designed by Joe Dressel, who's amazing. And a reminder that you can find my sources, links to the books, documentaries, and articles I reference in the summary of this episode, or by emailing us, hilfpodcast@gmail.com, or messaging us on social media @hilfpodcast. If you'd like to leave a little cash on the nightstand, I'm so grateful. You can find me on Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Links to these and more are all in the show notes. This has been HILF. History I'd Like to Fuck with Dawn Brody. I'm Dawn Brody, reminding you that history is a party and everybody's coming.
Actually, there is a story I didn't tell you. So the guy who owns the house, his name was Antebelli. And he was accustomed to renting the house to high-profile people. It was why Terry Melcher and Candace Berggren had lived there. Okay. And some people say that the reason Terry Melcher moved out was because he was afraid of Charles Manson. And he actually had a lot of guilt when he moved out and Polanski and Tate moved in. Maybe he could have given him a heads up that some fucking scary hippies were coming after him. But of course that was, who knows, and it's inconclusive and all that kind of stuff. But
he meant to kill someone else.
Here's something awful.
Uh-oh.
Antebelli, the man who owned the house and rented it to everybody, sued Sharon Tate's father for the cleaning bill.
Ew. Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Oh.